in Iran?
Well, yeah, I've seen a couple of snippets or quotes from the interview, and actually, one of the surprising things that come out of it is Possession said the Israelis tried to kill him too. That he was at a meeting that they were that meeting site was specifically targeted, and the attack failed. I don't know. He didn't go into details as to why, but the criticisms that I'm seeing, I read some of the criticisms about the interview, what he said in the interview. So they may or may not be accurate, but those criticisms are basically painting him as you are describing as too soft, too accommodating of the West. And when you realize that the Iranian Pezeshkian's government was actually seriously trying to negotiate with the West and trusting the promises. And according to Pezeshkian, the United States had promised that they wouldn't let Israel attack. And yet 2 days before they're supposed to meet for negotiations, Israel attacks. And what does Donald Trump say? He doesn't say, those damn Israelis, they told him not to do it, and I'm furious. No, I knew all about it. I knew the precise details. He bragged about it. He was happy. Joyful. Until he realized that it turned out to be, while it was a tactical success, it was a strategic disaster. And I call it a tactical success because, boy, the Israeli intelligence service showed that they could arrange the drone attack from within the country. They could get people into certain places, manipulate them so they could kill them, which they did. That they could dismantle some of the top echelon of Iran's scientific community, but they go after the nuclear scientists. Yeah, so they did some damage, no doubt about it. And they calculated, this would cause the collapse. But strategic failure because Iran got up off its ass after getting knocked down and immediately began hitting Israel with ballistic missiles, drones, cruise missiles, and ultimately shredded Israel's air defense system to the point that Israel no longer had protection. And there is now, as I wrote about it last week, but now there's corroborating evidence that Iran really put a hurt on Israel. It hit key defense sites, both military, intelligence, as well as economic and scientific. So the strategic loss now from the standpoint of the West is that before they had eyes and ears on Iran's nuclear program, knew exactly what Iran was doing because they had penetrated IAEA. Now they don't. The IAEA is booted out. And it's now, I guess if Pezeshkian is allowed to do what he wants to do, then he's, frankly, I think he is far too accommodating of the West. But we'll see what the other elements within the Iranian government, say, no, we're not going back down that road, are going to harden up. And as you said, the Alexander Mercouris has done a pretty good analysis over the Iranian efforts to get the JC-10, the plane out of the combat jet out of China, as well as the S-35 from Russia. And there had been a previous perception that it was Russia and China that were delaying those, but it wasn't. It was just the opposite. It was Iran. Iran has had ample opportunity, but has been dragging its feet. And we saw some of the Iranian reluctance to move forward with any closer military defense relationships by the simple fact that after that strategic agreement was signed on January 17th, it took Iran, the Majlis, another 2 or 3 months to approve it. So, now it looks like Iran's awake. Holy smokes, they're not our friend. Okay, well, Well, welcome to reality, boys and girls.
What do we know, Larry, about the Chinese fighter jets in the war between Pakistan and India? They've used them. And are they capable? Are they that good? Are they, I don't know, how is that possible to see if Iran buys these sort of fighter jets? Are they going to improve the Iranian the Iranian
I
position?
personally, I think spending money on fighter jets at this point is silly. It's old technology. It's like saying, "God, man, what kind of saddle do I want for my car? You don't need a saddle. This
I
is
agree.
when you're riding horses. Um, what you need is advanced air defense systems that are impregnable, air defense systems that can shoot down everything from drones to ballistic missiles, and you upgrade, continue to upgrade and expand your ballistic missile capability, your hypersonic missiles. Uh, that's that's where the offense comes, because candidly, these jets, the jets, they look cool. Tom Cruise makes a great movie with it, Top Gun 2. But the the, what you can design, what these planes, these modern fifth generation planes are capable of doing, makes it impossible. Actually, if you flew it at its full capability, the human being inside it would die because of the G force you can create. And so, and a lot of the expense on these aircraft is because you got to put in systems to keep the human being alive. And then in the chance they get shot down and it can manage to eject, then you got to put a team together of, maybe 10, 20 people with other planes and helicopters to try to go rescue them. And then they get shot down. I mean, in Vietnam, they had this thing with it's called Combat Search and Rescue, CSAR. And when you looked at the casualties of pilots that died in when they were shot down, and then the CSAR crews that were killed or captured trying to rescue them, it was far higher, my understanding, on the combat search and rescue side. So it's like, why buy these stupid jets? I mean, like I said, it's like if you live out in the country and you got dirt roads, why buy a Lamborghini? A Lamborghini is great if you got concrete highways and flat, smooth, and you can drive. But if you're living in the rural area with where you need a 4-wheel drive vehicle, get that. That's why I said this. So those getting that kind of aircraft, it's really symbolic. It's just symbolic. Say, okay, we're closely tied together. Does not really, in my view, enhance Iran's ability to defend itself. Because let's be clear what we're talking about here. One of the reasons to have those kinds of jets is to attack other countries. And I don't think Iran wants to send the message that they're about attacking other countries. They want basically the United States and Israel to leave it the hell alone.
They would never attack another country.
Yeah.
So I understand it.
Yeah. So I think the whole thing of these fifth generation fighters, it's it's more for the benefit of those military industrial companies to enrich them and their shareholders. Now, clearly China's built it, Russia's built it because they are peers with the United States that got to match them. But candidly, there's going to come a time when you can fly those aircraft remotely. You don't need to have a pilot in them. And once you take out a pilot, the cost of building those is going to go way down.
And Ted Postal, in one of the sessions I had with him, he mentioned that air defense systems are so capable of shooting down these fighter jets. They're so easy
Yes.
to get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Larry, do we know if Iran had or has S-400 or did they
The,
buy it or
no, no, they haven't. They turned reportedly turned Russia down in the past. Now maybe they're trying to get it now. Um, Andrei Matyanov has pointed out that uh, there was one S-400 and one S-300 in Iran, and those were at the Bashir nuclear power facility in southern Iran, because the Russians had 200 employees working there, and so they've stationed their air defense system there, and then they told Israel and the United States, stay away, don't even come close here, or else. So, and neither Israel nor the United States dared to attack that site.
Israel attacked Yemen again?
Mm-hmm.
Seems
And,
that they have
and
to
and
attack.
Yemen responded and attacked Israel, hit them
Yeah.
with hit Ben Gurion Airport. Is my understanding. These attacks on Yemen is just a reminder that Israel does not have unlimited military power. It is entirely dependent upon what the West supplies. Now they did launch aircraft, 60 aircraft to go bomb the port. I think it was Hodeidah in Yemen.
Yeah,
Uh,
Aludai.
uh,
Aludai.
okay, and frankly, Yemen needs to get some decent air defense. Um, and maybe they can convince the Chinese or Russians to help them. And up to this point, I think maybe Russia has wanted to avoid escalating the situation, but if the United States continues to facilitate and enable the war in Ukraine, I don't know why, uh, what reason there could be for Russia to continue to exercise that kind of restraint. But in spite of that, Israel's, they're going to launch these aircraft, they're going to bomb, and they're not defeating the Houthis. And the Houthis, they just sunk another ship, a Greek tanker that was owned by an Israeli, and it's sunk yesterday. And I know they've launched at least 2 missiles in the last 24 to 36 hours. And the Israelis are finding the same problem. The Houthis have these mobile launchers, and finding those mobile launchers and taking them out is tough. It's not easy. So Israel's, I don't think Israel's going to give up on its quest to destroy Iran either. But I did see that even the Zionist crazies like Bezalel Smotrich, he was saying, we didn't know that the Houthis could have so many missiles underground." A bunch of arrogant pricks. Jeez.
Alex, what was the outcome of the meeting between Donald Trump and Netanyahu? I think we have to be realistic about the meeting because it wasn't Donald Trump going to Israel. Netanyahu is coming to the United States for the third time, fourth time in
Yeah.
6 months, a third time, if I'm not mistaken. And every time he comes, he asks for something. Do you feel that are we gonna see new attacks on Iran by Israel in the near future? And I
I
would argue, and how do you see if that's the case? If so, what do they want from these attacks? I don't see anything better than what has happened so far coming out of the conflict between Iran and Israel in favor of Israel. I'm talking about. Israel is not going to get any sort of leverage. They're going to go down if they start a new fight. I think that's obvious. I don't know if Donald Trump is talking about it with Bibi Netanyahu, even with the United States participating, somehow collaborating, helping Israel, is not going to change the game that much. Your take on that?
No, I agree with everything you said, Nima. I think that they cannot prevail over Iran. So I think that they cannot destroy Iran's nuclear program. I mean, the Iranians are aware. They've seen Israeli attacks on Syria's nuclear program. They've seen the attacks on Iraq's nuclear program. They are certainly aware of Israeli attempts and plans to destroy Pakistan's nuclear program, and they had more than 20 years to prepare for this and to design their nuclear program in the way that is as robust and difficult to destroy as possible, among other things by dispersing it geographically and by burying it very, very deep underground, so that you can't really destroy it with bombing campaigns. So I think that the plan B and plan C for the West, and in this case, Israel is simply a proxy of the Western Empire. Plan B is regime change, which now looks unrealistic as well. Plan C is to try to partition Iran. And so I think this is why they activated Azerbaijan and Turkey. And it seems to me that by antagonizing Iran, the risk in partitioning Iran would be that they carve away the northwest, the South Azerbaijan, right, which is the northwest region of Iran. And if they succeeded at this by using Azerbaijan as their proxy, by probably funding and organizing separatist movements inside Iraq and using I don't know, MEK or even the Kurds and the Syrian jihadis, they could cut Iran from the Caspian Sea coastline. And if they achieve that, well, then they cut off the north-south trade corridor. And now they've put a major spanner into China's Belt and Road Initiative. And I think that this is the reason why China and Iran are now rushing the program to provide Chinese JC-10 jets to Iran. These jets have been battle tested now in the war between India and Pakistan in May of this year, early May. You remember there was I think it was at the end of April, there was terror attack in Kashmir, and there were some 26 civilians killed by Pakistani extremists, right? And then on the night of the 6th to 7th May, India mounted an air attack against Pakistani military targets as how do you call it? As a retaliation. Now, the interesting aspect of this, which is extremely important in this whole equation, is that the Indians, a few years ago, the Indians have purchased a fleet of, I think, 36 French Rafale jets. And the contract was worth $9 billion, which I think works out to about $250 billion per aircraft. So extremely expensive. And India's objective in this was to achieve air primacy over Pakistan. This was extremely important. So this was a major purchase. And it was, I think, one of the first such contracts where India shifts from using Russian arms to using Western-produced arms. And it turned out to be a very bad idea, because what happened is that Pakistan under Imran Khan reoriented Pakistan towards Chinese arm manufacturers, among other things, these Chinese JC-10 jets, J-10C jets. And so here's what happened on the night of the 6th to 7th May. India launched 6 aircraft to strike at Pakistani military targets. And at least 4 of these aircrafts were the French Rafale jets. And okay, so Pakistanis, in addition to having these Chinese J-10C jet fighters, also have use Chinese radars and Chinese satellite intelligence. And so they immediately knew that the attack was coming. And so they scrambled. I couldn't find out whether it was one Chinese jet or more, but this Chinese jet can carry 9 missiles, and they launched it with 6 air-to-air missiles, right? The jet itself has a powerful radar that can spot targets at over 200 kilometers distance, and it can lock simultaneously up to 16 individual targets. Well, at 200 kilometers, they locked onto these Indian jets. From 150 kilometers, they launched their 6, I think they're called PL-15 air-to-air missiles, Chinese again, and they downed all 6 jets that the Indians launched. This took Indian and Western military circles completely by shock, because it was extremely important that Western weapons prove themselves superior to Chinese or Russian weapons. And so this was an absolutely spectacular demonstration of exactly the opposite. Some military analysts believe that the whole clash between India and Pakistan was meant to inhibit Pakistanis, to intimidate them from taking an overly supportive role of towards Iran, because Pakistan's position, the importance of Pakistan strategically is that they're a Muslim country. They have a nuclear weapon, and they are the 13th most powerful military in the world, and they are very supportive of Iran. So before going to war with Iran, which was already planned out, was already a done deal, they wanted to intimidate Pakistan from coming out and backing up the Iranians. And this failed very spectacularly. And so the whole business of regime changing Iran doesn't seem that it's going to be happening. Destroying Iran's nuclear project, that doesn't seem that it's going to be happening. So Plan C is, again, trying to partition Iran, to carve off strategic parts of Iran away from the Tehran government. But it seems to me that this is their weak card. They're playing the weak card. The Azerbaijanis have put themselves in a very embarrassing position now, because they're antagonizing the Russians, they're antagonizing the Iranians, but these are their, geographically, these are their neighbors. Their trade depends largely on both Iran and Russia. So I don't know that this is going to work out, and I think that in fact the Western Empire, Israel, Azerbaijan, Turkey, all of that included, have actually sustained a strategic defeat, and now they're doing this arson attack. If they can create chaos, maybe they can save their game, but it doesn't. They're definitely playing the losing side now.
Alex, did you watch the interview that the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, had with Tucker Carlson?
No, I only watched a few excerpts of it. I didn't watch the whole thing.
Yeah, what he was saying in terms of the assassination, Israeli assassinations in Iran, he said that they wanted to assassinate him as well.
Yes, I
The
did see
plan,
that.
yeah, look at the plan. It was much bigger than what we thought before. It was all about killing the president, the supreme leader of Iran, all the commanders together. And with we can say in the aftermath of what has happened, we can say that they failed to achieve the objective. That's why everything went the way that we saw in the aftermath. The attack on Iran in the first 8 hours, Iran was somehow surprised by the attack, and then they came out and they gained the responsibility. They gained their position, and they attacked Israel and so forth and so on. But I don't see that happening again for Israel. I don't see that there is something else happening in favor of Israel. They did the best they could do in their eyes.
Yes, I correct, Nima. They have been preparing this for a very long time, and it takes a very long time to prepare the terrain, to cultivate sources, to cultivate collaborators, uh, to set up the attacks. Once you run the attack, well, then you no longer have that ammunition. Like with the pager attacks. Once you've done that, you can't redo it again. You have to come up with something else, and obviously it takes years to prepare these things. So I think that taking down Iran, regime changing Iran, has been so extremely important to them that they have probably shot their best shot against Iran, and it failed. It was partially successful. It was obviously a very clever gambit. They're they have capable intelligence services. They obviously have collaboration. I'm talking about Mossad, the Israelis, but they obviously have extensive collaboration from the British and American intelligence services, which have co-opted a lot of these organizations like IAEA. So it's no wonder they were able to do a good job. But now that they've run that course, Iranians now understand, and so they've eliminated a lot of these Mossad, CIA, MI6 networks within their country. They kicked out IAEA, and they have probably taken measures to make Iranian leadership less vulnerable to tracing, to hacks, to informants reporting on their movements and so forth. And so you will not be able to mount this attack successfully again. I think that they, obviously the temptation was to try to do as they've done with Hezbollah, to try the kind of regime change operation they successfully ran in Syria, but they failed. And now it's very obvious that they failed. And not only did they fail, they've obviously learned that they're not invulnerable behind their David Sling and Arrow 3 and Iron Dome and all of these systems, because the Iranians managed to hack them. And when I mean hack them, I don't just mean hacking into the system themselves, but the Iranians have learned very well how Israeli defense systems work. And you only have so many launchers, and these launchers only have so many rockets in them. And once you fire off all the rockets, it takes time to recharge the launchers again. And so the Iranians, already back in October, they understood a lot of how this works, and so now they know they need to launch this type of attack to absorb all the Israeli and American air defenses, and then for a period of time they're completely naked, and then you strike the big targets almost unopposed. And so now we've seen that Israel has sustained a lot more damage than we initially understood. And they understand that they can't just get away with bombing here and there, and then, life goes on happily ever after in Israel. Their ports have been destroyed, refineries, their military intelligence centers, Mossad centers, their I don't know what it's called. I can't repeat the or the Israeli equivalent of the Pentagon. And if they try to launch any kind of an attack against Iran again, the next reprisal will probably be bigger and more intense. The next reprisal from Iran is likely going to be a lot bigger and a lot more intense, and they're probably not going to stop. They're probably not going to say like, okay, Donald Trump, thank you very much. Because it's you, we're going to stop this. And so I think that the only card the West has to play is to attempt to partition Iran, to balkanize it. And so therefore, I think that the Iranians now have to be very careful and very vigilant around towards internal subterfuge, sabotage, in infiltration of separatist groups, of terrorist groups, of Britain has specialized in flooding their target nations with drugs. So they have to be careful with respect to an opium war being forced on them. So the game will change, but I think that as time goes by, the West is playing weaker and weaker and weaker hand, and their beachhead in Israel is now so beat up and so weakened that I doubt that it represents a real danger to Iran.